Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to MST.TV. This is Nishi with another Market Watch episode here. So today we're doing a little bit of looking to the future and discussing cards that are trending on the market now because of support that they will be receiving in the future. We have several sets to look forward to now, with Ghost from the Past and Lightning Overdrive coming up surprisingly soon, and then sets like King's Court and Dawn of Majesty dropping later on in the year, where we should be getting more and more reveals for over the next few weeks. It's always important for us to look ahead because oftentimes the price bumps that we see in the market now could definitely be indicative of bigger price spikes in the future, so we always want to keep an eye out for things as soon as the news hits. Let's get started. Alright, so kicking things off, let's take a look at Trap Trick Sarah. So in Lightning Overdrive, which is the next TCG set that should be dropping at the beginning of June, we are getting a couple of pretty interesting new Trap Tricks monsters, one of them being a new main deck monster and the other one being a Link 2. They're actually both really cool. One is a monster that can summon itself out, and the Link lets you summon Trap Tricks monsters from out of your graveyard, as well as lets you reuse Trap Hole cards, so both really solid. However, I don't actually think that they'll be enough to make Trap Tricks a meta-relevant strategy anytime soon. Obviously, in the current meta, we have cards like Lightning Storm and Harpy's Feather Duster running around, so it can definitely make it hard to play a back row heavy strategy, especially one where the archetype itself doesn't have any inherent spell or trap negation, so you're forced to rely on drawing into cards like Solemn Judgment if you want to protect your back row. Anyways, the hype for the Trap Tricks deck has led to a jump in the price of Trap Trick Sarah, a Link 1 monster that came out back in Battles of Legend Heroes Revenge. This is the card that kind of allowed Trap Tricks to function as its own strategy, and it has just one short printed secret rare printing from about 2 years ago, and as a result the card actually sits up between the $20 to $25 price points. Now admittedly, this card is a 3 of, so those who want to play the deck will need to pick up multiple copies, but as a strategy that probably isn't going to be meta anytime soon, I think that is a bit much to be paying for a copy of this card. Keep in mind that as this card is about 2 years old with only the one printing available, the card is probably due to be reprinted in a side set like Ghost from the Past or an OTS tournament pack relatively soon. Up next, we're taking a look at Catalyst Field, a Gemini support field spell that came out way back in Invasion Vengeance. So in Dawn of Majesty, we're getting a card called Dimer Synthesis, which allows you to search for Catalyst Field from your deck, and Catalyst Field is of course a generic Gemini field spell that enables you to activate your Gemini effects much more easily. Now, I think that technically the new card is supposed to be some sort of support for the Chemi-Critter archetype, but let's be real, that deck probably isn't doing anything anytime soon. So rather than that, I would say that the potential for this card lies in if we ever manage to get any sort of good Gemini archetype in the game, which is honestly really unlikely, but if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that absolutely anything can happen. Catalyst Field of course got quite a bit of attention within the last week or so, as it's the card that's directly mentioned in the text of Dimer Synthesis, and it has just one printing from back in Invasion Vengeance, which was the same set that Totally Awesome came out in. With just the one printing, the card is now up to $5 a piece on TCG Player at the moment, which is a big price spike from the $1 mark that it was at before. It does feel like a lot to be paying for a card like this, so if I were you guys, I wouldn't be counting on any sort of good Gemini cards to be popping up anytime soon. If you can find someone who's willing to pay a few bucks for your copies of Catalyst Field, I would offload them while they're at this temporarily inflated price before they cool back down. Next, we have Shaddoll Wendy. So perhaps one of the biggest surprises of the early meta has been the resurgence of Shaddolls, which saw a lot of success at the first LCS event of the new format, though I believe they did only take one spot at the top 16 at the extravaganza from this past weekend. Shaddolls definitely have a lot of potential as a meta strategy, as a deck that works well with other strong and consistent engines, such as the Invoked and the Dogmatica. At the same time though, it's confirmed that Shaddolls are getting a couple of new cards in Ghost from the Past, so even though those new cards might not be crazy boosts to the strategy, that still explains at least a portion of the hype for this deck. I believe that Wendy is a card that you would have to run at 3, as it's a big boost to the consistency of the strategy. If you fusion summon using Wendy as a fusion material, you summon a Shaddoll monster out of your deck in either face up or face down defense position, which is cool because this gives you another body that you can use for either a fusion or a link play. You can set something like Beast out of your deck, and then you fuse the Beast away to draw another card for free, which is really cool. Now, Wendy has just one printing from the Shaddoll structure deck, but aside from this card and App Cologne, most of the other Shaddoll cards are actually quite easy to go and pick up, as there are multiple low rarity printings available. Because of this, a lot of people have stuck to just buying single copies of Wendy, which has driven the price of the single card up to $8 a piece, with very few quantities available on TCG Player at the moment. The sealed deck actually did contain a lot of value, with cards like Allure of Darkness and Super Polymerization in there, so if you can still grab those decks sealed for $10 to $12 at your locals, I would go ahead and grab them now. However, if you can't grab them and you still want to play the deck, I would definitely consider holding off on picking them up for now until we see what Shaddoll cards are potentially going to be reprinted in Ghosts from the Past. Next up, really briefly, I want to touch on Code Ancient Ruins. So this buyout actually happened last week, and it wasn't just with this card. We got a couple of new alien cards confirmed to be coming out in Dawn of Majesty, and I think that the new Link monster is actually kind of good. I remember seeing something about some sort of alien Abyss hybrid, combining aliens with the new Abyss cards from Ancient Guardians. Anyways, as good as the new stuff is, aliens probably aren't going to be meta anytime soon. In fact, I don't think I've even seen any quote-unquote alien decks actually playing alien cards outside of the new extra deck monster, so that's kind of interesting. Of course, that didn't stop people from looking at a number of different alien cards to buy out. On screen, we're taking a look at Code Ancient Ruins, which is now apparently a $35 card, but of course there are other things to take into consideration, cards such as Alien Kid and Cosmic Fortress Golgar. However, I don't want to spend too much time talking about these. They're more just cases of cards that were bought out because of the new support that's announced, but there's just one printing of each available on the market, so they're slow to replenish back and cool back down in price, even though the cards aren't really that viable. Realistically, I think that each of these cards is going to go back down to around $5 or so, because I'm not counting on them to be meta relevant, and they'll probably see common reprints in an OTS tournament pack closer to the set's release. Without a doubt, these are the types of price spikes that you want to capitalize on by offloading all your copies of this card as soon as the news hits, while the hype is still there. Alright, next up we have Rescue Cat. So this card is actually one that has been quite expensive for quite a while, but recently we've seen all of the lower rarities take a bit more of a bump up in terms of price. So I believe that the reason that we're seeing hype for Rescue Cat is the Tri-Brigade strategy. There was one deck that made top 32 at the Extravaganza that I saw that played one copy of this card. It's actually kind of cool, right? You can use Rescue Cat to summon a copy of Kit and a copy of Karis directly out of your deck, and then Rescue Cat actually doesn't negate the effects of the monsters that it summons. So you could use their effects as well. Kit triggers when you link it off, so this one card could give you a Link 2 monster, 4 materials in your graveyard that you could potentially banish for a Link summon, and then a copy of Nerval in your hand as well, so that's really, really cool. Anyways guys, this card's price is kind of crazy. We've seen all versions of this card shoot way up. For the Turbo Pack Super Rares, those are obviously really expensive at $70 each, and the Duelist Saga Ultra Rares are about $20 a piece as well. However, I think that right now, all the common printings are at least $10 to $20 each. Even the Champion Pack Common and Turbo Pack Rares are like $35 right now on TCG Player, though they probably wouldn't sell quite for that high of a price point, especially for a non-holo version. I think that Rescue Cat is definitely an underrated starter for the Tri-Brigade deck for now, and it definitely could start to pick up traction, so it is something that's worth keeping an eye on for now. It's currently at too high of a price point for me to recommend going out and investing in it though. This card was banned for quite some time, and since it got unbanned, it just had the one printing out in Duelist Saga, so still quite a difficult card to find. Keep an eye on the price of this card, especially if we start to see it run in more Tri-Brigade decks, because if it doesn't get a reprint soon, this is a card that definitely could continue to trend upwards. Another quick one here, we have High Speed Roid Kite Drake. I know when I first was told about this card by one of my buddies, I didn't know what this card was either. Anyways, this is a level 8 synchro monster that requires a Wind Machine tuner and then a non-tuner to make. It has an effect that when it is synchro summoned, it allows you to either destroy all other cards on the field or negate all of your opponent's face-up cards, which is kind of crazy. Also, if your opponent sends it from your possession to your graveyard, you get to search for a Speedroid card as well, which is awesome. So obviously right now, Speedroids aren't doing much of anything. However, in the next legendary duelist equivalent in Japan, we are going to be getting some Speedroid support. I think it was for all different wind archetypes. Now, obviously, we don't know just how good the support is going to be, but if it's really good and we were to see something like Terror Top going back to 2 or 3, then just maybe the deck could actually be something of a threat. Now, Kite Drake just has one printing from back in Battles of Legend Heroes Revenge, and I do very clearly remember thinking that this card was just a dud. It was definitely only like a 25 cent, 50 cent card, something like that back then. Now, however, we're actually seeing the card up at $4 each, and I think it certainly has the potential to go higher if the Speedroid support that we get is legit, because it really is a useful card in the strategy. Of course, there is a chance that we could see this reprinted in the Legendary Duelist set itself, but that is anyone's guess. If I were you guys, I would definitely be looking to dig this card out of your holo bulk as soon as possible. Keep 1 or 2 copies for yourself, just in case you decide that you really want to play Speedroids if they are good, but let go of your extra copies since they are relatively high, while that mystery kind of keeps this card's price slightly on the higher end. Next up, we have a card that I personally think is really important to keep an eye on, and that is Drytron Nova. So Drytrons were arguably the biggest loser of the last ban list, with Benton going to 1 and Union Carrier getting banned. As a result, we've seen Drytron take a huge hit to its consistency, and it's kind of down around the tier 2 status right now. It can do some kind of cool things with Megalith, it just isn't as powerful or consistent as it was before. However, I definitely think that's going to be short-lived. With the release of Lightning Overdrive, we're getting a couple of new cards for the deck, including Diviner of Heralds and the new rank 1 Drytron Xyz Fafnir, both of which are really significant boosts to the strategy. Looking back, it was definitely a good thing that the deck was hit, or else perhaps it would be a little bit too strong now otherwise, and these boosts will definitely help bring it back to tier 1 or at least tier 1.5 status. Because of this, I would definitely keep an eye on the price of Drytron Nova, which is one of the key cards in the Drytron deck. It summons a Drytron monster out of your deck directly, which gives you a body to link with, but then you can also summon that Drytron out of the graveyard as well. When Drytrons were first found to be good, Nova is the card that jumped up to around the $50 mark, but with the hits to Drytron, it has settled back down to around $35. However, we haven't actually seen it rebound since the announcement of Diviner, and with Lightning Overdrive's release just a couple of months away, I think we should expect to see Nova steadily increase in price. Keep in mind that Nova was a short printed card from a side set that wasn't really all that heavily opened, and Genesis Impact was arguably one of the biggest flops that we've seen in a while. However, it was extremely recent, so it probably isn't going to be reprinted anytime soon either. If you're looking at playing Drytrons once the new Xyz comes out, and you don't already have your copies of Nova, I would definitely look at picking them up at around the $30 mark within the next few weeks, before we see the card inevitably trend back upwards towards the $50 price point. The last card I want to talk about here is Borreload Savage Dragon, which I think is definitely the best level 8 synchro monster in the game today. It's a key part of not only Dragon Link endboards, but basically every strategy that can utilize synchro monsters as well. And in this format, we've seen Dragon Link emerge as one of the best decks, which has served to push the price of this card up slightly. Right now, you're looking at $20 to $25 for an original ultra rare copy, or $15 for the secret rare reprint. Prices that are up from the $15 and $10 marks respectively from right after the Megatons came out. However, I can't help but feel like Borreload Savage Dragon is kinda underpriced for what it is. The card only has 2 printings, and while the secret rare wasn't necessarily short printed, there was only 1 secret rare in each tin, and the secret rare pool was quite large, and then we already know that the ultra rare version was short printed back in Savage Strike. That being said, we're expecting to get Dragoonity support in Ghost from the Past, which is certainly going to boost Dragon Link, which will in turn drive up the demand for Borreload Savage Dragon. I actually think that both versions of this card have the potential to reach the $30 mark, assuming that this card doesn't get any sort of unexpected reprint or anything like that. Personally, I would be actively looking to pick this card up at around the $10 mark, maybe $12 in trades, because I think it has a reasonable amount of room to grow in price, with products that are going to drive up its demand in the near future, and no expected reprint in sight. Alright everyone, that is it for today's Market Watch episode. I know it feels like all of a sudden we have a ton of new sets that are just about to come out. The last few sets have been pretty underwhelming between Phantom Rage, Blazing Vortex, and Genesis Impact, so I'm hoping that the next couple of sets are gonna breathe some new life into products and get me excited to go tear open some packs at my local OTS once again. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed today's Market Watch episode, please make sure that you hit that thumbs up button for me and let me know. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards that we covered in today's episode, and also let me know about what other cards are trending on the market so I can hopefully cover them in a future episode to keep you guys all as informed as possible. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest and greatest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.